All right, we're streaming to YouTube. Welcome everyone. We are officially at workshop number 4 of the beginner DApp bootcamp, and I think we're starting with chapter 4 today. We finished chapter 3 in yesterday's in the other workshop. And so today we're gonna do is we're gonna focus less on the cadence, right? Because we already have all of the cadence done in our code. But what we're going to do today is focus on connecting our dApp to the blockchain so that we can actually run some transactions and scripts from our front end. I don't know why I'm getting these errors. This is really annoying. Oh, it's because the cadence extension is being annoying. But yeah, okay. So we're gonna start running some transactions and scripts from our front end. Okay. So the first step is because we want to connect our dApp to the blockchain, we have to install @onflow/fcl. So if we go to our terminal here, also, and by the way, I'm trying a new format today where I have this here and this here because we're going to be cross-referencing a lot. But let's go ahead in here and let's type npm install @onflow/fcl, and you're going to do this in the directory of your project. So if I click enter, it should install FCL for our dApp. And again, FCL is going to allow our dApp to interact with the blockchain if we hook it up correctly. Um, oh yeah, I think you're right, Raven. I think you're actually right. It keeps going. It keeps like breaking and unbreaking. I don't know. It's weird, but um, okay. So, what we're gonna do now is now that we've installed FCL, and by the way, you can always see that in your package.json. This is the current version of FCL. It looks like they've made quite a few updates. But if we go to our flow folder, we're going to make a file called config.js. And I always do this in all my projects. So in here, we're going to put the following code. Now, I'm just going to paste this here, but I'm going to explain this to all of you. So what just happened is we imported config from @onflow/fcl. And config is what we use to tell our application how to look at the blockchain. This first one, and there's two that are really necessary. It's the access node.api and the discovery.wallet. Access node.api tells our dApp what version of the Flow blockchain to look at. Well, not version, but type. So either you tell it like the local emulator, which is just for testing purposes, or you tell it testnet or mainnet. Now, for this beginner dApp bootcamp, we actually don't utilize the emulator or mainnet. We're strictly going to be using testnet because it's the easiest. But I'm thinking that because this is a dApp bootcamp or a beginner one, I do eventually want to introduce emulator because I think it's very helpful for testing. But for the sake of this dApp, we're just doing testnet, okay? For I guess for the sake of time, really. So what happens here is you put access node.api and you put a comma, and this is all in like a dot put statement, and then you put this right here. So rest testnet.onflow.org, and basically this means okay, our dApp is currently hooked up to Flow testnet. Now the second one, discovery.wallet, this is telling our application which wallet to look at. Now there's this thing on Flow called FCL Discovery, and FCL Discovery is basically all the wallets in one except for Dapper Wallet because Dapper's annoying. So Lilyco, Blockdo, and NuFi, I believe, are all. Oh, and Ledger are all in FCL Discovery. Dapper, for some reason, has not made the effort to put Dapper Wallet in there, for who knows why, but there's probably some legal reason. So yeah. Now, if we wanted to, actually, one thing I'll quickly note is that if we go to like floats, for example, you'll notice that when I click Connect Wallet, Dapper actually does show up. And the reason is because we don't use FCL Discovery on Float, or really any application that has Dapper Wallet as an option doesn't use FCL Discovery because I just completely blanked my sentence. They don't use FCL Discovery because Dapper doesn't show up in Discovery. So with this kind of modal, you have to individually display each wallet. So instead of putting FCL Discovery here, you would put like a link to Blockdo. And then you could also hook up a link to Dapper and then also hook up a link to Lilyco. But for this example, we're just going to use FCL Discovery because it includes all the major wallets except for Dapper. Now this one, app.detail.title, this just gives our application a title, and app.detail.icon, we can put a little Imgur link, and this will show an image when we start up our wallet. So We can't see the effect of these two right now, but we will in a second. Um, okay, so now we're gonna log in. I don't know why I put logging in. But we're gonna follow what this says. So let's go to components and let's go to our nav component. And inside here, we're gonna add this chunk of code in our import statement. So we just imported FCL here. When you see import all as FCL, that really just means we're importing the whole FCL library, and we can call any functions or any things on this that we want. So any functions. We're also going to import our config. Now, the reason we have to import the config is because that will bring all of this into this file. So when we click on, for example, connect wallet, it's going to note to have all these configurations associated with that. And then lastly, we import this thing, which I'm not going to explain now. I'll explain that in a sec. Okay, so that's cool. But yeah, okay. So what we're going to do now is, remember we were talking about components, and components have, they return HTML code, which is like the front end. But they can also have JavaScript code. Now, this is sort of JavaScripty, but it's more just, ES6 syntax, where we're going to use something called useState. So useState is basically a fancy way of storing variables inside components. So the way to do that is actually, did we do this inside index.js? No, we didn't. Okay, this is the first time you're seeing. So just follow me for a second. We're going to say const, and then we're going to open brackets, user, set user. Now, this is weird notation if you've never seen this before. Um, So yeah, this is definitely strange if you've never seen this before. But basically, what's going on is when you have something called useState, that you actually import this from the React library. Um, you open up brackets and you put two things: a user and a set user. Or if it was another variable, let's say greeting and then set greeting. So the first variable is the actual variable. So this is what we're storing. And then the second thing is the setter function for this variable. So if we ever wanted to change user to be something else, we would call set user. Then we equal it to useState, and inside the parentheses of useState, we give this a default value. So we're going to say, okay, well, actually, you'll see in a sec here that when we console log user, or when we view the user in our console, it has a property called logged in, and it's either true or false based on whether or not we're logged in. So what we're gonna do is, because upon what really happens with useState is sometimes when you refresh the page, right, this useState variable gets reset back to its initial value, but sometimes it doesn't update quickly enough for your front end to notice that. So what's gonna happen is sometimes in our code, we're gonna say like, okay, if the user is logged in, then do something. Otherwise, do something else. And so because the user isn't going to update quick enough to allow this piece of code to know if the user's logged in or not, we set a default value of logged in false. That way, any single time, even if we refresh the page, if we do user.logged in, at least it'll know that user.logged in is false. Okay? So that's the reason for putting that. So I hope that was a decent explanation. And then we're going to take this piece of code and put it right here. Now, what this is going to do is use something called useEffect. Now, useEffect is also pretty useful. I'd say I probably use useState and useEffect the most. Then again, I am kind of a React noob, but bear with me. What useEffect does is it runs a piece of code after every or after every update of some condition. So what's happening here is, because useEffect takes in two parameters: one, a function, which is this, and two, when to call this function. So empty brackets, if you ever see useEffect with empty brackets, this means run this piece of code every time the page is refreshed. So if you see brackets as the second argument, this means run this piece of code every time the page is refreshed. Whereas if I were to put user in here, this means, okay, run this piece of code every time user is changed. So anytime user is changed, run this piece of code. So this would be on page refresh. This would be if we log the user out, if we log the user in. So anytime user is changed, then run this piece of code. But for us, we only want to run this every time the page refreshes. So what this piece of code is doing, fcl.currentUser.subscribe, this is very fancy code. I wouldn't get too stuck on it. Really, all you have to know is that this piece of code makes sure the user stays logged in every time the page refreshes. So for example, if I was to log into Float, refresh the page, I'm still going to be logged in. But if this piece of code wasn't here, then if I was logged in on Float, I refresh the page, then I would no longer be logged in. So this just makes sure that you stay logged in. Okay, so not too bad. And now that we know that, we're going to add just some couple functions to actually log us in. So let me actually start up our environment here. Let's go to localhost. And we should see a login button. Now, of course, when we click this, nothing's happening. So, because this is just an empty button. In fact, I think, yeah, it's right here. It's just an empty button. So nothing's happening. There's no on-click handler. It's empty. We're going to change that. So we're going to make a function called handle authentication. So let's copy this, put it right here. And we now have an empty function called handle authentication, but it doesn't do anything. So what we're going to do is say, okay, this is what we're going to do to log in or out. So if the user is logged in, then fcl.unauthenticate. So that means if we call this function and the user's logged in, log them out. So this is log them out. Otherwise, else fcl.authenticate. And this means log them in. All right, pretty straightforward. And again, these functions are coming from FCL. If we wanted to write this differently, we could, instead of importing all as FCL, we could just import authenticate and unauthenticate, and then just do this, right? But for me, honestly, I kind of like it when I have FCL because when I'm looking at this piece of code, it helps me to know that these are coming from the FCL library and that this has to do with logging users out. So just a personal preference of mine. But some people like to be super neat and only import the things they need. I wonder if that's quicker too for the code. You only import some things. Anyways, okay, so that's a cool function, but we don't call this anywhere. So why don't we, inside our button, let's make it on-click handler and put in handle authentication. Why is it not giving me an automatic? Okay, I can't type this one. Handle authentication. Okay, cool. So we should get some interesting behaviors now. So if we refresh the page, click login, woohoo! We get Blockto and Lilyco. Yay. Now I believe the thing with FCL Discovery, by the way, is if you don't have Lilyco installed, it won't appear here. Same thing with NuFi. Because I don't have NuFi installed, it's not appearing. Also, they made a very interesting change with Ledger. I've never ever used Ledger in my life, so I don't really know much about it, but they actually made a recent change where Ledger doesn't automatically display here. You have to put something in your code to make it display here. Again, I would have to sort of dive into that rabbit hole, but I'm not too sure. But anyways, most important part is that these two are here. Um, sorry if I coughing, by the way, I'm sick. Okay, so let's click on Blockto, and this should load up, and I'm gonna click confirm. And cool. So now we're theoretically logged in. We just have no idea because I haven't put anything here to display that, right? But what we could do is why don't we test our skills really quickly? And I'm gonna make a use effect here. Now, I'm going to test all of your knowledge. What should I put as the second parameter here if I want this to run every time the user's changed? Let's say I want to console log the user every time the user's changed. What should the thing be here? Close, Raven. Very close, but something needs to be inside of that. Yeah, exactly, Cheetah, user. So what I can do now is inside here, I can console.log user, so we can at least see it. So this is going to run every single time the user's changed. So if I click this button, right, we just logged ourselves out. So let's check, let's take a look. Logged in, null. Address, null. CID, all this stuff is null. Let's log in again. Blockdo, and watch this side. Watch this side. Okay, we got a new log. And look at this. So here's our address. Here's our CID. This expires at, I don't know what that means. Logged in, true. And we get all these services here that if you want to dive into the whole deep end of user authentication, you can look at my YouTube channel. I have a ton of videos on this stuff, but the main important part is this address parameter right here, the user.addr, and that gives you the address of the user. So we're gonna at least comment this out because we don't really need it anymore. Actually, let's keep it. Why not? It's helpful to know the logs. Okay, so cool. Pretty cool. Now, okay, yeah. So now what we want to do is, we don't want to just make this login button stay like that. Can we get any particular address transactions? Oh, you mean like can we get the transactions of a certain address? Yes, but I don't really think that's that. I don't think that's easy. Maybe no, honestly. I don't know if the tooling exists yet to do that. I don't think so. I mean, you could listen to events, but I don't think that'd be helpful enough, to be honest. I don't know. I mean the answer has to be yes because FlowScan does it. I just don't know how they're doing that. So let's change our button here. So what we're going to do is instead of just saying login, right, because we have this boring login button and there's no indication of the user if they're actually logged in, we're going to change this login button. So let's just watch it update. Okay, nothing's there now. And we're going to say, if, so, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that there's this thing in code where if you do, I'll write it down here. If you do like, like normally you have like an if x, dot dot dot, and then else dot dot dot. The way you write this in JSX syntax is you open brackets and do x question mark dot 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 else dot dot dot. So these two are the same thing. So if x do this, else do this is the same thing as saying open brackets x question mark do this, otherwise do that. So these are the same thing. So what I'm going to put in here is, okay, if user.logged in, put user.address, otherwise log in. Okay, so now you look at our application, we should see that the user address is being displayed here, but if I click it, now the user's logged out. I can click login again, Blockdo, and confirm. Pretty cool, right? So this is, it's honestly like I have to give it to Flow. They made the logging in process like extraordinarily easy. If you've ever coded in the Ethereum world, you'll know that like the whole MetaMask experience is like almost god awful. So props to Flow. Can we get a round of applause for the Flow team for that? We love the Flow team for that. Great job, Flow team. They made logging in really, really awesome. So it's always good to applaud that. Thanks, Flow team. Oh, also, talk about applauding the Flow team. Did anyone see for all the warlocks in here? Did anyone see that announcement I made about the Flow playground? For those of you that have been with me along my struggles of the Flow playground, they actually completely updated the Flow playground so that there's almost no errors now. So once again, love it, Flow team. Thank you so much. Really doing God's work here. All right. And honestly, like personally, I was excited they didn't update the UI of it. I just was so happy that they helped fix the errors. Honestly, well, you know what's funny, BZ? Here, I'll show you something really quick. You guys want to hear a funny story? Just a quick little side note. Um, so so do you guys know Deet? Deet's like the co-founder of Dapper. Well, Deet apparently watched my YouTube channel, and I made a 20-second video one time making fun of Flow Testnet because they always say they're healthy and they're not. So here, I'll just show you the video. Whatever, I'll just show you the video. So I made that video about Flow Testnet. And anyway, Deed and Roham saw that video, and apparently they messaged in their Slack channel telling the developers to fix it. I was like, wow, no way they actually looked at that. So every time flow testnet's broken now, I just post a video about it. So then Rohan yells at everybody. That's great. Um, so back to the example. Um, yeah, exactly. I honestly, I should get more active on my YouTube channel again because that was such a good resource for me for communication. Um, oh, I think that's it for this chapter. Did we do it? I think through all the trolling, we somehow made it to the end. Okay, cool. So let's go on to day 2. Running a script, yay. All right, so congrats everyone. We're now hooked up to the blockchain. Now let's run a script, shall we? So, quick overview of scripts. Remember, scripts read data from the blockchain. Yeah, they read data from the blockchain. So if we want to read someone's NFTs or read a total supply of something, right? Um, but we're gonna sort of go back to our cadence a little bit. So remember, our Hello World contract exists on testnet right now. In fact, if we go to our flow.json and go to our testnet account here, we can view this on the view source. Here's our contract, right? This is our contract on testnet at this address, and we want to read our greeting variable. Now, lucky enough, during our chapter 3 or our last workshop, we actually made a script called read greeting, and it's right here. So we can actually use some of this code to call a script ourselves. So we go to our thing again. It says go to pages index.js. Okay, we're here. Thanks, Jacob. Now we're here. We can copy this function. Boom. Okay, so now we have a function inside of here. Now, some of you may be wondering, what does this async mean? If you notice in our nav file, all our functions just had function and then the name of the function, then parameters, then open bracket. Whereas this one has something called async. What async basically means, okay, so keep in mind, I'm not an expert on this. I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. But when you make like an API call to a backend or you make a request to the blockchain, it takes time to do that. So what happens is it returns something called a promise that basically means, okay, you have to wait for this result to come back. So for this code right here, to wait for the response to come back, you have to use something called the await keyword. So if we like const, our greeting equals, and then, let's pretend this is like a run script function, right? We need to put something called await here to wait for this result to come back from the blockchain. And in order to put await instead of a function, the function has to be asynchronous. So the problem is if we didn't put await here, and we were to console.log the greeting here, we would get like a promise, which isn't even readable. Like you can't even like decipher a promise. So we have to wait for the result instead. Okay, so that's sort of my explanation on async await. And that also applies if you're like calling into a backend somewhere, because it takes time for code to go and fetch data from someone else's backend. So you have to wait for the response. Okay. Um, cool. Oh, I actually think I explained that right here, don't I? Oh, nice. Okay. Let's also import FCL at the top. And inside of here, I'm not going to copy this code because I think it's helpful to see it. We're going to say const response. This is the response we're going to get, or otherwise the greeting. Otherwise, notice the greeting we're going to read from. We're going to use our await keyword. And then in order to call a script, you do fcl.query, open up your parentheses, and we're going to pass in an object. Let's open up the object. The first thing we put into the object is the cadence code. So this is the cadence code. The next thing is the args. Now this is written kind of weirdly, but it's you just copy this format every time. And then down here we can console.log the response from our script plus response, which just means we're going to log the response here. So the cadence code, you always put in between these little backticks. So let's open this up a little bit, and let's go to read greeting. So we're going to copy this code and paste it right here. So there's our cadence code. Now, does anyone have, actually, yeah, so we can't use this anymore. We have to use the address. So if we go to flow.json, we have our testnet address right here. and we can put from this. Okay, so that's that. And this should be our cadence code. Now the arguments, I don't see any arguments we have to pass in here to our cadence function, so we can leave this empty. Doesn't have to be anything. So this should be done. Um, so if we scroll down, okay, so I don't know why did I explain? Okay. Anyways, let's go to the next section, seeing our greeting. So we want to call this function somewhere. So how are we going to do that? Well, we want to call this every single time the page refreshes. So any ideas in the chat? Yeah, use effect, exactly. So let's do use effect. We're going to open up our thingy here, and we're gonna do this every time the page refreshes. So we put the little brackets here. Good, good, good. And we're gonna console. Oh no, we're just gonna call execute script. All right, so we're gonna call execute script, which is this function, every time the page refreshes. So let's go ahead and try it. Let's do this, refresh the page, and we get response from our script. Hello, Cheetah. Oh, remember we said it last time? There we go. Hello, Cheetah. So there is our greeting. Okay. Hello, Cheetah. Be cool. Um, cool. So one thing I want to mention, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'll leave that for a different time. Okay. So there we go. Now I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it for this code. Pretty cool. Day 3. Day 3. All right, so what are we doing now? Passing in arguments to a script. Oh, this is where I actually love this chapter or this day. This is the most fun for me. Um, because this is me teaching you how to pass arguments in, which is like its own topic. So it's actually really short, but it's super fun. So this doesn't have anything to do with our DAP, so I'm gonna actually increase this here because this is like separate. So yeah, in fact, none of today's material will involve changing Emerald DAP. So yeah. Anyway, so we just did this, right? And we didn't pass any arguments in here. Now, theoretically, if we had arguments here, we would pass arguments, right? So, um, let's see here. So in this case, right, this is cadence code. So we're passing an A, which is an integer, and B, which is an integer. So, or in this case, we're passing in a string and a string. So how do you pass these in with FCL? Well, it's complicated. Um, so if you were to have a script like this, for example, we can actually bring this into our Emerald DApp so I can show you. If we go right here, um, so what's going to happen is it's going to run this cadence script, which again takes in an integer and an integer. So we need to pass in integers to our thing here. So before we had an empty array. Well, we can open up the array, and for each argument we're going to put arg, and then whatever arg we want. So a and b are both integers. So let's pass in like 2 here, which is t.int, and let's pass in another arg, which is like 5 t.int. And we can console.log response. Now, what this means basically, so for each argument, you put the value of the argument as the first parameter, and then the second parameter is t, which is coming from here, t dot the type of it, so t dot int. Also, hey Shiver, welcome in. Okay, so let's go back to our application and let's refresh the page. And we get 7, right? 2, because this script takes in 2 and 5 and returns 2 plus 5, which is 7. Okay. Now, quick note, we're going to get this warning here. So passing in numbers as value for int is deprecated and will cease to work in future versions of @onFlow/types. This error basically means that we have to make sure our integers are actually strings for God knows why. So there we go. This didn't used to be a thing. I would say probably like 6 months ago. But around 6 months ago, they changed it so that even integers have to be passed in as strings. So if we refresh the page now, shouldn't get these errors anymore. Okay, gone. So that's integers, but this chapter is focusing on pretty much everything else. So what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna take this function and figure out what the heck is going on here. So we have an integer. We also have a string, a ufix64, an address, and a bool. Now these are very straightforward. So for an integer, t.int. For a string, t.string. For a ufix64, it's t.ufix64. Remember, also ufix64s are like they're numbers with like decimals in them. So for example, 12.3 or 0.1 or 15.75, or it could just be 6.0. They're not negative because it's u, right? U is unsigned, so that means positive, 0. Address is just an address. All these are in strings, by the way. And a bool is either true or false. Now it gets a little complicated. We start talking about optional values, or arrays or dictionaries. If you haven't done cadence before, you probably don't understand what an optional is, so don't worry about it. Take our beginner cadence course. But if you do, I'll explain it to you. Arrays and dictionaries. So these are complicated. The way that you pass in an optional is you put, the optional here, which is, for example, null, because that's like the null value, or this could also be, hello. As we know, optionals can either be null or the value, so this could be hello. Um, and the way that you pass it in is you put a t.optional of a t.type. So if this is a string optional, you would put t.optional and then t.string. If this was a integer optional, you would put t.optional of t.int, right? So pretty self-explanatory. Now for arrays, it's a little weird. You just put the array, which is like, array of 1, 2, 3, and then you put t.array of t.int. So similarly, if this was an array of strings, we would put, a bunch of strings, hello, goodbye, and random, and we would just put t.array of t.string. Okay. The only complicated one, in my opinion, is dictionaries, because it makes no sense. For a dictionary, let's say we have a dictionary of string to address, you have to pass in an array of key value pairs. So we pass in an array where the first one, the key is float and the value is the address. And this one, the key is emerald ID and the value is the address. And then for the type, you put a t.dictionary, and inside the dictionary function, you put an object where you specify the key type and the value type. So as a challenge, I challenge some of you to pass in a dictionary of string to an array of string optionals. Good luck. All right. I think that's it for this chapter. So is everyone okay with the types? Oh, also, if you want to get even more complicated, make a struct in your contract and then pass in a dictionary. No, here's a challenge. If any of you want kudos from me, figure out how to pass in a dictionary of dictionaries. Wait. Um, Pass in a dictionary of dictionaries where the second dictionary is an array of structs, optionals. Try that. I guarantee you'll be on that for at least 3 hours. It's so complicated for no reason. I have been there. I have been there before. Yes, it is possible. Also, I intentionally didn't show you how to pass in a struct because I think honestly, if you're ever at a point where you're passing in a struct as an argument, you're architecting your transactions wrong or your scripts wrong, but sort of a side point. Okay, do we have time to keep going? Are we just gonna blaze through chapter 4 here or what? What is this? Oh, this is transactions now? All right, who in the chat wants to cover this one? Or are we too tired? This is transactions now. So if you want to cover transactions, thumbs that up. If you're too tired, thumbs that down. She just said, let's cover. All right, let's cover. Let's do it. All right, let's cover. Let's go back to this setup. And now we're going to figure out how to get a transaction into our little app here. So I think it's just this button that we're going to change. Okay, so let's go ahead and I think earlier in this boot camp we were supposed to have this function. I just didn't because I was doing something else. So I'll put that back. And I think one of these is supposed to be hooked up to that if I'm not wrong. In fact, I think it's telling us that we have this right now. So why don't I just... Okay, clearly that wasn't good. Wait, did I miss something here? Oh, it's because this was supposed to be in your quest. That's why. You saw this in your quest, so I'm behind here. I gotta get back to where you're supposed to be with your quests at this point. Actually, why don't I just copy this whole entire file? And I think the only thing I have to replace is this address here. That if likes that. Oh, okay. Good enough. So this is, I guess, what you're supposed to be looking like. And it looks like the greetings being printed here. Okay, easy enough. So we have this run transaction function here. Now it looks like this is hooked up to something. Yeah, right here. So this run transaction button. So when we click this run transaction, it's going to run the transaction. Now, of course, right now all it's doing is console logging these two. So if we open this up, go to the console and click run transaction, it's you know, printing these two. Now I think if we type in here like some random thing, click run transaction, it's actually going to tell us what we're changing it to, because you'll see in your quest. I'm not going to spoil this, but you'll see why that it's doing that. So this is up for you to solve. What we want to focus on is actually running the transaction. So if we go down here, we're going to get rid of these two console logs. And we're going to do something very similar to the script. So down here, see how we have const response? We're going to have const, and instead we're going to have transaction ID equals await, which, by the way, this also has to be async correctly. Await fcl.mutate. So whereas fcl.query is for scripts, so fcl.query is scripts, fcl.mutate is for transactions. So fcl.mutate, open this up, we're going to have our cadence, and we're also going to have our args, just like we did before. And then we're gonna have a few more things that are kind of weird, but let's just do them. So proposer. Let me just copy this because it explanations too. All right. So this looks complicated, but it's not that bad. So what's going on here is with a transaction, or I guess with a script, all it cares about is the script and the arguments. Whereas with a transaction, we care about a lot more things. Now the reason for this is because obviously with transactions, someone is sending it to the blockchain, and someone's also authorizing it. So with a transaction on Flow, there's multiple different roles. There's the proposer, there's the payer, and there's the authorizers. The proposer is the person that is starting the transaction. So who is responsible for creating the transaction? The payer is the person paying for the gas fees of the transaction, which on Flow is very small. And the authorizers are the people that are basically authorizing their private keys on the transaction. So what that means in reality is if we go to the transaction, see this signer here, this auth account, these are the authorizers. So for those of you that took the beginner cadence course, you know that you can actually have multiple authorizers here. It's just that we only ever used one, but you can have as many as you want. So this is, if we go back to our example in index.js, that's why this is an array, because you can actually have an array of authorizers. And what's a pretty interesting example is if we go to Emerald ID, The way that Emerald ID works is there's actually two authorizers on the transaction. The first authorizer is the person that like is creating the Emerald ID, and the second authorizer is a admin on our backend that's verifying that the Discord ID that you're passing in to your wallet is actually your Discord. So that way I can't lie and say that I'm Cheetah's Discord. So there's two authorizers on the transaction. So pretty interesting use case for that. And also, if you're curious, I have an entire video on low multi-sign FCL, I think. So if yeah, so if you're curious on multi-signing in FCL, well, go ahead and watch this. This is part one of that video. I look so swag in that. Oh my god. Um, I've never seen anyone so good looking in my life. Okay, so now that all that's explained, let's go back to this example. And we're going to fill these in. So for the proposer, the easy way to fill these things in is to say fcl.authz. This just means the logged in user. So let's go ahead, paste this in there, paste this in here, and the limit we're going to put is 999. The best I can explain fcl.authz is okay. So essentially the way this works is you can't just pass in anyone's address to the payer, because can you imagine if like I could just pass in your address for the payer field? I would just make BZ pay for all my transactions, right? You have to put in an actual authorized object. Now, because Flow, again, props to the Flow team, round of applause. They make this so easy for you because when you log in, right, when we go through this login process, they actually create what's called an authz for you so that when you run this transaction in code, you can put fcl.authz and it automatically knows that you have authorization from the logged in user. So fcl.authz basically is just the logged in user's authorization, and you're allowed to use that because the user has already logged into your dApp. So you know that they've authorized this dApp just simply by logging in. That's pretty cool. And then if you wanted to put someone else's authorization here, you would have to do some complicated thing that you'll have to watch that YouTube video for. So you can watch that YouTube video if you're curious. Now the limit, this ranges anywhere from 0 to 9999. This is just the gas limit of the transaction. So if it's a really complicated transaction, you would probably want to put 9999. But for this case, we could even probably put 99. It would work fully fine. But for this example, I think I told you to put 999. So that's what we're going to do. All right, now we have to fill in this cadence thing, and we have the transaction right here. So let's fill in change greeting. Pretty cool. And we need to change our import to be from our contract address, just like that. Oh, and look, we have an argument here, so let's pass in the argument. So inside of here, what do you think I should put right here as the argument? To give you a hint, the new greeting is stored right here in this variable. So what do you think I should pass in here? What does this look like? Got the answer. Yep, exactly. New greeting, and then t.string. Perfect. Great job, Cheetah. Wizard in the night. Alrighty, now I think, is that it? All right, let's try it. So if we go back to our Emerald app, refresh the page, click on, let's just change this to hello, Darth Nubius. Click run transaction. Let's all pray. Let's all pray. Oh, here we go. Comes up with the prompt. We can see the cadence script inside of here and also the argument. Click approve. And if we do a bit of waiting, we should be able to see this change. Do a bit of waiting. Wait, let's wait, let's wait. I'm going to try to refresh the page now. This says hello Cheetah. Let's refresh the page to see if it's done. Yay, it's done. So it officially changed it. Woohoo. Really cool. You just ran a transaction. Nice. So there's a lot of things you can do with this. I love the wave. There's a lot of things you can do with this. I believe one of the ones that I tell you to check is okay, I'm glad I actually mentioned all this. So we can actually take okay, so the reason we had to wait is because when you run a transaction on testnet and mainnet, it takes time for the node validators to actually validate the transaction. So, we can't just update it immediately or else, it's not the changes are going to be reflected. So if we go down here and console.log transaction ID, I can sort of show you why. So remember, the transaction ID is given right here, so we can log that. So let's log hello cheetah. We already had hello cheetah. Hello sweet. So if we run the transaction, wait, approve, and look at this side. Okay, here's the transaction ID. So we can actually go to testnet.flowscan.org, paste in our transaction ID, and it's broken. All right, so should I make a YouTube video on that or what? Come on. Really, testnet? You're gonna do that to me right now? It's so much easier to explain this if I can show you this, but really? That's so annoying. That's just so annoying. Um, I guess to answer your question, Numini, there's I think 5 stages of a transaction. The first one is initializing, the second one's pending, the third one is um executed. No, there's a third one that never shows. Then the fourth one's executed and the fifth one is sealed. So it has to go through all those stages in order to actually change it. So it just takes some time. Anyways, it changed. Still broken. Control F5. I would type that, except for the fact that you type that, Raven, and I'm traumatized of you sometimes because I feel like you're gonna make me alt quit my entire computer. um. All right, so that's that. Now, the only other question we have left is what if we want to change the I never do that. All right, everyone, I'm going to click Control F5. If my entire computer shuts down, we know who to blame. All right, Control F5. Let's see what happens. Oh my God, am I going to be hacked? Oh, it was just a refresh. Oh, thanks, Raven. Never a doubt. Never a doubt. Okay. So why don't we make it so that instead of refreshing the page after like 30 seconds, we actually make it update on the spot. So let's do that. What you can do actually is after you get the transaction ID, you can tell your application to wait for it to be finished. So let's await fcl.transaction, pass in the transaction ID, and then say .once sealed. Oh, look, so you actually have options here. You can print it once it's executed, finalized, or sealed. Sealed means it's completely done. So let's do once sealed. And then we can call the execute script function. So again, it's going to wait on this line because we put a wait. It's going to wait on this line until the transaction's sealed. And then after it's sealed, we're going to run the script. And the script is going to go in, read the greeting, and then set our greeting. So it should update it. So if we save this file, go back, and let's try this again. Hello, Raven. I'll put a heart. Let's run transaction and approve. All right, let's sit here and wait. We're waiting. What did Cheetah say? About 14 seconds? Come on. Come on. Uh-oh. This doesn't seem like 14 seconds to me. Oh, there we go. All right. Get updated. Be cool. Pretty cool. I love that. I put that. Correct. But yeah, anyway, so pretty cool, right? Done. Um, I believe that's it for chapter 4. So in chapter 5, what we're gonna do is add some nice quality of life improvements. So what that means is we're actually going to display a little message to the user, depending on what stage of the transaction they're in. So if it's currently being, executed, we'll say it's being executed. If it's being pending, we'll say it's pending. So we'll give more user feedback. And I think we're also just going to clean some things up. But we've officially done chapter 4. So congrats everybody. To be honest, I knew this boot camp was going to be less time than the Cadence one. So I think honestly we'll probably finish this on Wednesday. No, Raven, it doesn't. Well, I mean, if a transaction requires more gas, then, you know, technically it's because there's more code to do. So it should like they sort of go hand in hand. It's not like a higher gas limit like makes it go slower. It's more that if your transaction is slower, then also it's likely that there's a higher gas limit because there's just more code to execute. But I think the difference is so small, to be honest. All right, Shiver never skips a beat with that float. Love that. Let's go to the float platform. See if Blockdo stops having a spaz attack. Oh, look at that. All right, Blockdo. Woo! Focusing on Aptos now, are we? I don't like that. Don't like that. I woke up this morning to we are now on Aptos email, and looks like they have completely shut down their flow services. So thanks, Blockdo. That's great. Make video. I definitely don't like what I'm seeing here. This is not good, Blockdo. Don't forget about flow, people, please. Um, this is also sort of scary, but I just can't access my assets. I mean, what's going on here, Blockdo? Don't like this. Oh, okay. Thanks, Rin. What do you know? I can log into my wallet. Huge. Is it because of too much activity? I don't know. Someone's got to ask these guys. I'm not really sure. Oh, look at that. We hit 3,600,000. All right, float. Bringing in the users. I like that. Great. Um, Let me just copy the format here. Oh, by the way, Raven, you sneak. Um, I don't know why I just called you a sneak, poor Raven, but um, the in Discord feature works now, and I keep forgetting that's a thing, right? Yeah, you tell me. Oh, Raven. Yeah. So I'll do that for you this time. Let's see. All right, let's go here. Let's go here. Oh, we just covered chapter 4, right? Chapter 4. Emerald Academy. No, you can't snipe anymore. Sorry, BZ. Fun is over for you. Yeah, get wrecked. True. Yep. Um, this was our 4th Nerd Boot Camp workshop. Let's make it soulbound, so you can't sell these things. These are very valuable, by the way. Thousands, probably. Can you imagine years from now, you had a personal workshop with Jacob Tucker? I mean, that's thousands right there. So, for that reason, no, none of you can make money from me. Soulbound. Um, Let's see. Also not claimable because I'm going to airdrop this. And let's also no secret code. So let's create this float. If I die, oh no. Things are getting dark in here. The workshop is taking a negative spin. Fake tradable? Cheetah wants the money. It's alright. Maybe I'll code something so that if I die, then all these become tradable automatically. Man, Blockdo, I mean, guys, don't forget about Flow, please. I get Aptos is the new and exciting baby, but I mean, am I gonna have to make a tweet about this? At Blockdo. Yeah. This is actually really bad news, I feel like, right? Like if their services are this terrible, what's going on here? No, Shiver, because I'm gonna use the new command, assuming it works. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna be so sad for Raven. Wow. Low mainnet. Lilyco, yeah. I would always recommend using Lilyco because number one, How, the founder, is the nicest guy ever, is so smart, and also it's an incredible engine. Okay, what happened here? Blocto's just bugging out. Yeah, failed to fetch. They're not liking this. Come on, Blockto. They're pretty similar, BC, in that they're both Google Chrome extensions. The only difference is that MetaMask sucks and Lilyco is really good. Let's go to the description. Chapter 4. Also, yeah, Lilyco is just so much better. It just is. Also, there's just a lot more innovation with Lilyco because How is super smart. And the great thing about How too is that you can. Oh yeah, thank you, Darth. The other great thing about How is that like he's very responsive. So if you want like if you want a feature, like he will definitely respond to you. Now that doesn't mean spam him, but he is very kind. All right, come on, Blockto, please. What's going on here? I don't know if we're gonna get to do this right now. Really, I don't want to make you guys sit here. Actually, you know what I'll do? Okay, this is the perfect time to use it, I guess, right? What better time? So if I do in Discord here, everyone can see this in Discord. And I do what are we in Classroom 100? Boom. Oh yeah. There we go. I now have all your addresses I can airdrop to. Let's go. Is everyone here connected to Emerald ID, by the way? Raven, you're not. Oh no, this is the Emerald Academy Discord. That's why. Isn't that so cool? Emerald bot. Woo! All right, so now I'll just airdrop all your addresses. This is really bad, Blockto. Wait, what do you mean manual, Raven? What does that mean, manual? What it takes to make a Discord bot? I don't know. Genetically gifted, good looking, really smart, funny. I mean, look at this. Blockto's just fully not working. This is really bad. Oh, Raven, you silly. That can't work because I would need to give EmeraldBot my private key, you noob. Numini, Emerald ID. Here, look, I'll show you. I'll show you my magic tricks. All right. So look, if you do like if you right click your name, click on oh you can't do it in here, but if you do slash identify and then put Numini, there you are. There's Blockdo, Dapper. You don't have a Lilyco. You have no energy, Numini? Come on. No energy. Yeah. Who has the high? I think Austin has the highest energy right now. 23 energy, Austin. Wow, that's a lot. Energy is the point system that you get by answering questions in the main forum. And I think in December we're gonna launch like a Pokemon system where the higher energy you have, the higher level your Pokemon is on the Emerald Academy website. So did this work or what? Oh, it worked. Okay. Um, no, but it's yeah, you're gonna get immediately banned. Okay, so here we go. So we have workshop number 4 here. Now, if all works well, I should be able to upload the user's file and award it. Let's see. I don't like the order of that CSV file. Listen, BC, I don't think your address is up front. Uh-oh. Uh, I love that the in Discord is working now. That's actually huge. All right, let's see. This is working. Come on. Oh, it worked. So we refresh the page. 12 have been minted. And how many are in here? 15. All right, so I guess some of you either weren't in here or didn't have Emerald ID connected. Who got it first? Who got lucky? This person. How to be on the CSV? Just have your Emerald ID connected, and it'll know automatically. Oh, Simip. Nice job, Simip. Woohoo, Simip got number 0. Sweet is the last. Deserved. Yep, deserved. Where'd I go? Oh, I'm here. I'm number 8. All right, everyone. Sorry I kept you overboard. I had too much fun. Um, I didn't mean to do that. So we'll finish this boot camp on Wednesday. So I'll see you all there. Oh, also make sure to sign up for the event. Hold on. Um, there you go. Click interested on that. Ruining my life. Yeah, that's what you get. All right, everyone. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye bye. Bye bye. If you see that stupid emoji. Bye bye.